Bestiary of Sigillum is a two-player or a team-based game of tactical combat, but is this game worth your hard-earned gaming dollars when it comes to Gamefound? We'll come on back after the break for a good overview of exactly what this game is. Hey everybody, welcome out to the show Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to the tabletop gaming hobby, and this video is part of a video series looking at the game of Bestiary of Sigillum. Now, Bestiary of Sigillum is a two-player or a team-based tactical game of basically arena combat, where players are going to control a group of summons, and your basic goal is to attack the other player's summons, or by controlling catapults to attack the other player's castle directly. Because every single player is going to have a castle with a certain amount of siege structural integrity that it can take. As the rounds go by, as your catapults attack, and as you defeat the other player's summons, the siege damage is going to continue to add up against the other player. Once one other player's castle has been completely destroyed, that player is going to lose, or that team is going to lose, and that other player who still has structural integrity is going to be the winner, whether it's a single player or a team versus the other player. This is a very chess-like, a very tactical, a very arena combat style game. Now, before we go any further, I gotta let you know this is an actual prototype for the game. This is not the final results. I mean, heck, it even says work in progress right here. And I was not paid for this review at all. There's no money exchanged hands for this review. I don't do that. That is not how I run my channel. The way I stay honest is by the fact that I'm not being paid for any of these reviews. Basically, the company that makes this game contacted me and they said, hey, we're bringing out this game and we've seen your channel. This looks like a game that you might be interested in, and they definitely had my interest, and that's why I said, sure, I would definitely be happy to check it out. But I just want to press upon you that everything you're seeing here is prototype components only, so anything can and possibly might change here. So this video is going to be not my 100% review of the game. This is going to be a look at what the game looks like now, the gameplay that we have in there, and basically how I feel about the game as it's presented right now. Now, if you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I will do my best to get those questions as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf board game reviews. That is otsbgr@gmail.com. I do my best to answer those emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoy the content, you enjoy the videos I put out there, think about supporting the channel on Patreon. Just $1 in the tip jar can help me cover my costs and help keep this channel going strong. No games, no gimmicks, no sponsorships. This channel is 100% sponsored by me and all of you viewers out there. Your likes, your subscriptions, your sharing can help the channel grow and help me keep bringing out content out there. Honest content that's not influenced by sponsorships or anything like that. Just telling you how it is and how much I like a game. If you enjoy this video, series, make sure you click that like button and click that subscribe button. But let's go ahead and talk about the game of Bestiary of Sigillum. Now, looking at just the nuts and bolts, this is basically a tactical arena style game, a very chess-like game, a very game that we have seen kind of in the style before. This is a game like games such as Summer Wars. This is a game that is kind of similar in some aspects to other tactic style games such as Too Many Bones. This game has a lot of pedigree from a lot of those other games that we've seen before, where the basic idea is it's one player versus another or one team versus another, where you're going to control units. Your objective is to gain area control on a board by either attacking other players, defeating other players' units. All these units are going to have special powers. They're going to change how the game is going to play, and we've seen these kind of things before. What does this game bring to the table which is more unique, which is a little bit different, and changes the standard gameplay of the way we've seen these games before? Now, one of the big things that really intrigued me about this game is how it took a lot of mechanics and gameplay of games that I like a lot. I grew up on chess. I've played many tactic style games, whether we're talking about PC tactic style games or we're just talking tabletop style tactics games such as Summer Wars, Magic the Gathering, or there's even the arena style game, which the name is escaping me right now, which has kind of been out of print this time, where you basically had a board where players were summers, you had your spell book, and the nice thing about how that modified things is you had access to your spell book right from the beginning of the game. I'll leave a note here with the name of that game because right now the name's escaping me. But these were the style of games that I really, really enjoy, because I enjoy tactical style games where it's one player versus another, where you basically, it's a battle of wits, a battle of minds, as you're basically using your resources as efficiently as possible to play a war of attrition, to play a battle of wits, to try to defeat your opponent based on the way the game plays. Now, this game brings a lot of cool aspects or a lot of changes to that style of gameplay that I really, really appreciated. to go ahead and use a comparison of Summer Wars. Now, I've already brought in Summer Wars earlier, so I'll kind of bring in a comparison here again, which is really cool. Summer Wars was a really interesting game, but it was a very large board where it had a lot of movement. So tactical movement was very much a thing with that game, but what impressed me about this game right here is how the tactical movement is so much shrunk down. Shrinking down the tactical movement in a game is so darn amazing. And I didn't realize how powerful this was until I started seeing games that actually did this. You look at the game of Too Many Bones. On the surface, Too Many Bones, when I first saw the game of Too Many Bones, I was like going, it's a 4x4 board, or was it like a 4x4 or 5x5? Now I'm drawing a blank. But it's a 4x4 board. I looked at the game and said, how can this game be fun? There's no tactical movement. Well, limiting the amount of movement you had actually improves the power of the ability of movement. You go and look at a game such as Darkest Night. Darkest Night basically takes the idea of pandemic, where you're trying to stop all these bad things from happening at all these different locations. Or Pandemic has many, many different locations. Darkest Night has a handful of different locations. So every single one of those locations are so precious. They're very much important. You must control those locations. So playing a game on a smaller board means that so many things are much more important. Every individual move is important. Every individual space you control is very, very important. And it creates this interesting dynamic for a game that is really enjoyable for me, because you basically deliberate on the game and you look and say, if I move here, am I going to gain control? Can they take that control away from me? Because it's so darn integral to add that into your strategy about the areas you're controlling. So that's something that I thought was really, really cool about the game. Additionally, another thing that I think is really interesting about this game is the fact that the basic game comes with 27 different summons that you can use in this game. Every one of these summons has different powers, different abilities, different strengths, and different weaknesses. But the interesting thing isn't their individual powers. The interesting thing is the combinations you're going to make up when you play this game. In this way, this game almost has a Magic the Gathering feel for me, which I think is really awesome, or any kind of game where you're playing a deck building style game. Because at the very beginning of the game, before you start playing the game, you're going to pick your summons. Now, there's two different ways you can play this game. Now, you can play the standard board here, which is for a standard two-player game, or you can play the teams board, and the teams board is a little bit larger, more spaces, for you allowing for 2 players on each side, or one side with 1 player versus another side with 2 players. But the interesting thing about this side of the board is the fact that it has 4 castles, has 4 catapults versus 2 castles, 2 catapults, and additionally, every single player, every single team is going to control 4 heroes, not 3. Why is this so darn important? Because like I said earlier, the cool thing about this game is the combinations you're going to make with all of these summons that you bring into the game. The power and the diversity in this game by having all these different summons creates an interesting way you're going to play the game. Now, the cool thing about the game is when you first start playing the game, it does give you some suggestions for some teams that you can use when you play the game. Because I can tell you, you're not going to see the great combinations when you first play this game. You're going to look and you go, wow, that is a lot of powers. I know red is kind of like front line. I know green is kind of glass cannon. And I know blue is kind of control. But beyond that, I don't know what any of that means. But once you start learning this game, learning all the individual summons and learning how every one of these summons works together, you start seeing how there's kind of like an interlocking of how you can build this great team based on synergizing all the powers you have to create all these teams that are greater than the sum of their parts. And you can work together because the cool thing about the mechanics of this game, which is something that Summoner Wars always lacked, is in Summoner Wars, you would activate and you couldn't do anything with that unit anymore for the rest of the turn. You'd activate, can't do anything with it for the rest of the turn. It's kind of the same way with a lot of these style games where you pick your unit, you do things with it, and it's done. This game evolves that in a really cool way because I pick a unit, I do something with it, but I'm not done with it until I say I'm done with it or until I have no more powers to activate. Then I can kind of go over to this unit and say, yeah, I'm going to do something with this unit, and then I'll do something with this unit, which now allows me to do this thing right here, which now allows me to do this thing right here, which now allows me to do this thing right here. And now you create these really cool combinations. And the fact that these combinations work so darn well together is really, really cool. But now we get the second step, the second evolution, which makes it much more of a deeper strategy game. Because I need to look at all this and go, wow, I just created this really cool combination, but I created this cool combination, and now I've lost the ability to use these powers for X amount of turns. So as we're doing it right now, can I possibly trick my opponent into doing a move where now I'm going to use these powers and affect more of their units? So maybe I don't want to do this quite yet. maybe I want to wait, and instead of just doing this, instead of that, I'm just going to do a movement action and kind of bait my opponent to come out there, because maybe I'll get them to group up, then I hit all of them. Because the way you're going to gain victory points is by defeating your opponent. How do you defeat your opponent? Like I said, is by doing siege damage, by slowly reducing the amount of structural integrity of the opponent's castle. There's two ways to do this, meaning that there's two ways to form strategies for this game. The one way is to control a catapult. How do you control a catapult? Well, on the smaller board, you just have to be next to a catapult or on it and have more unit strength there than your opponent. Control strength, not actual attack strength. How do you do that on the other board? Well, on the bigger board, it's the same idea, but you notice that the amount of spaces for the catapult are smaller. Instead of 5 spaces, there's only 4 spaces for controlling those catapults. So if at the end of my turn, I control a catapult, every catapult I control is going to fire. On the smaller board, that's a potential of 2 catapults. On a larger board, if your opponents are playing really, really dumb, it's quite conceivable that you could actually control 4 catapults. It's probably not going to happen unless your opponent's falling asleep at the wheel, but see that there's strategies and tactics and how that's going to go. Additionally, anytime you defeat an opponent's unit, it's going to return to their player board, and then the moment that there are no units on their castle, they are forced to automatically resummon that unit, and every time they summon a unit, they're also going to take 1 point of structural integrity. So now you have these 2 different ways that you can play this game. You can play this control game, where you just have the most control strength to keep control of these catapults every single round, while you kind of turtle, keeping your summons alive as long as possible. Or you play this aggressive game, where you directly go after opponents. You don't worry about controlling those catapults because your objective is to defeat them as quick as possible, again, doing that structural integrity damage. Additionally, unlike a lot of other tactical games I've played out there on the market, this one is a perfect knowledge game. There is no randomness in this game at all. Even from the start of the game when you're building up your team, now I didn't cover this, and I'll just cover this really quickly because this will actually make sense to you in just a second how I'm supposed to, or what I'm trying to explain here, is that when you first start your team, you're going to have this big old stack of cards. Again, once you learn the game, and again, this is where the game gets awesome. These combinations are part of the bread and butter of the game. This is what is so darn cool. Looking at all these go and going, wow, if I come with this, with that, and that, and I have this really awesome team. Whether it's going to be a 3-man team or a 4-man team, either way, it's going to be really, really awesome. When everybody knows how to play this game, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take these stack of cards, and the first player is going to take the stack of cards and say, okay, none of us can play this guy, and I get this guy. Your turn. And then that person is going to say, okay, well, since you got Messam, and I know Messam loves to work with this guy over here, so guess what? This guy is now out of the game, and I'm going to take this guy. What's your choice? And we're going to do this back and forth, and you're going to see that that adds even more to the replay variety of the game. It's going to stop people from going, hey, I'm playing the game. Yeah, I'm taking these same 3 guys every single time I play, which is something that you see as a problem in a lot of miniature-style skirmish games, because you play a lot of miniature-style skirmish games, like you play Warcry or you play any of those kind of games. Basically, every time you play the game, you're going to pick the same army because that army always works. And there's nothing that's really going to stop you from playing that army until your opponent figures out something that breaks that army. Once your opponent breaks that army, then you're going to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to make your army all over again. This game kind of takes that concept and rolls it into every single time you play the game, because you're going to play the game and you're going to pick your army, and then you're going to say, let's play the game again, because I haven't covered this, but this game plays pretty darn quickly, which is kind of nice. So you're going to play the game quickly, and then you're going to pick your first unit, and the opponent's going to say, oh, no, you can't use that guy because he's now removed from the game. And now that adds more to the game. So you have this really cool evolving game that evolves with the playstyle and forces you to stop sitting in a rut. This game forces you to go out there and learn strategies, learn new tactics, learn the evolution of the heroes, learn how all these heroes work together, and force you to learn new combos, versus playing such a game as Too Many Bones, where when you play Too Many Bones, you say, okay, I'm playing Too Many Bones, we're playing versus this baddie, I'm using this gear lock right now, so I know I'm going to evolve this way because that's the best way to evolve this gear lock every time you play versus this baddie. Now, of course, that's not a perfect sermonization of Too Many Bones, and I realize that, but that is something that Too Many Bones kind of has. When you're playing Too Many Bones, it's very easy to say, okay, I know it's always good. Since I'm playing this hero, I need to get a lot of dex. Since I'm playing this hero, I need to get a lot of attack. Since I'm playing this hero, I want to get this ability pretty darn quickly. This game kind of breaks that pattern, and that's kind of cool. I like that. It kind of forces you to kind of get out of your shell, go out there and find new tactics, new strategies, and it's kind of fun. Additionally, like I said earlier, this is a perfect information game. As I look across the table, I see the units my opponent has. My opponent sees the units I have. My opponent sees all the actions I have. I see my opponent's actions available to him. and we see the timers available for all of our abilities, so I know what they can do on their turn, and it's a perfect knowledge game. I like the fact that you have this much tighter board, and I also like the option that you can play with this larger board. And actually, I think, and I'm just saying this right now because I have not had as much time with this game as I would like to. I'd like to play a heck of a lot more games, but what I'm seeing so far is I think I like this board better because I get 4 units, I get a little bit bigger board, and I think this is about the size where I'm liking the game. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the smaller board with the 3 units. I think this is a great introduction way to play the game, but I think I'm leaning towards the 4-team style game, even playing as a 2-player game where each side gets 4, just because I've seen some really cool combinations using 4 units. Kind of got off on a tangent there, sorry about that. It's just something that I found very, very cool there. So, we have this perfect information game. We have this game where you always know what the opponents can do at all times, and it creates these wonderful strategies, and I really, really enjoy this game. But now we're going to start seeing one of the strongest negatives I'm going to say about this game. This is a game that is, a game you need to play a lot to get good at. This is like I've said this a couple times, this is a chess-like game. If you sit a grandmaster chess player down against somebody who's just read the rule book, somebody's going to get utterly destroyed, and somebody's going to have their feelings hurt very, very quickly because they're going to be obliterated. This is one of those games. This is a game where a player is going to get good. This is a game where a player is going to see all the strategies, all the harmony, and all the synergy of all these units, and they're going to build these awesome teams. You're going to obliterate your opponent. That is something that is going to be something that you need to be ready for when you play this game. This is one of those games that I highly, highly, highly suggest when you're learning to play the game and you play versus somebody who knows the game very, very well. Both of you should pick the teams in the back of the book which are pre-balanced versus each other. These are not, I'm going to say this because these aren't the best combinations. These are stable combinations. These are good, not standard, but very stable combinations that work very, very well. There are some combinations that I've seen in this game that can be devastating, but a little bit one-trick pony, glass cannon style, where it's like, if I get my trick to work, I'm going to obliterate you. But if you figure out what my trick is before I get to work, yeah, I'm going to go crash and burn, which is something that this can possibly happen with this game. So I highly suggest, just because of what I said earlier about how this game is so darn tactical and so darn strategic, when you're first learning the game and you have somebody who's really good at the game and somebody who's not that good, both of you should pick some of these pre-made teams just so both of you can be pretty much on even footing. I think that's a good thing to do. Additionally, this is a game that you want to go easy on new players, just like chess. If you are a master chess player and you want to get somebody to play chess against you more often, don't obliterate them. Kind of like the same idea with this game. That's going to be something that you're going to have to be cautious with this game. Following along with this, this is also one of those games that you need to play quite a few times to learn all the intricacies, all the strategies, and all the tactics and how this game goes together. It's very, very easy to play this game, and if you don't play well, you can get kind of destroyed. I mean, you kind of see my sample gameplay video where I play the game. I played dark, but I wasn't trying to play dark as well as I could because I wanted to get this point across and show to you how it's possible in this game to play terribly. There's no catch-up mechanics. There's no catch-up mechanic in this game where you're like going, well, this thing's going to happen to prevent me from getting obliterated. No, white pretty much dominated the entire game, and they kind of tore the dark player apart pretty quickly because I synergized all my powers better, I played smarter, and I used those abilities much, much better to my strengths and allowed me to beat the other player. Now, could black have won that game? Yeah, they could have. There was actually a strategy very early in the game that I was going to do differently, but I was like, I kind of want to make this a point and accentuate this point when I actually do this review because I think that's something that's going to be very important for all the players. This is a game that you got to be ready to invest time in and invest plays into to get the strengths of the game out of it and understand how great this game can be. The great thing about this is this game plays quickly. I mean, you can play this game very easily in about 30 or 45 minutes. It's an easy game to play like that. And the wonderful thing about that is once you're done playing, you can set up the game and play it all over again. Matter of fact, if you really want to, you can actually just switch sides and use the exact same teams if you want and say, hey, I beat you with white. Now can I beat you with black using the exact same teams, just playing for the other side? Doesn't make a difference. And that's kind of the really cool thing and one of the things that is really good about these style games. I so greatly enjoy these style of games just because the tactical strategy of these games, the mind games, and just the fact of how everything goes together. This is a game that has tons of synergy, tons of great gameplay, and a phenomenal amount of replay variety. I'm not kidding when I say there is a huge amount of replay variety. All these different summons play differently, have different strengths, different weaknesses, and they synergize so darn greatly together, creating this wonderful gameplay. Like I said, the only caveats I have about this game is this is a game you need to play multiple times to get the strategies for, to learn the combinations, learn the tactics, and this is definitely a game where a good player is going to trounce a bad player every single time. If you're willing to play a game like that, if you're willing to enjoy a game like that, this is going to be a fantastic game to add to your collection. Replay-wise, there is a phenomenal amount of replay in this game. I mean, you get the phenomenal amount of replay just with the variety that you're going to have here. The fact that this is a very deep tactical game, a game that you're going to play many, many times just to learn the strategies, the intricacies, and how all these things work together. Now, the thing about the game, though, is that you need to understand is these tactic-style games, they generally play best as a two-player game. Yes, there are team rules that come in the game, and yes, the team rules do work. But I really actually see in the future that most people, probably most likely, are going to be playing the team rules just as a way to play a competitive game just with a larger map and the ability to have 4 units on the board, which I thought was kind of cool because that gives you more ways to make some combinations, because 4 units are obviously going to have more combinations than 3 units. I think that's going to be where a lot of people are going to gravitate towards. Again, the team game does work, but it really, I think this game at its heart and at its soul is going to be a competitive 2-player game. Play 4 players, but a lot of people I think are really going to look at this game and see it as the 2-player game it is. Now, I don't want to take a lot of time talking about components because this is a promotional version of the game, but there are some things I need to cover here because what you have here looks really damn good. But before we get to the components itself, I want to take a moment to talk about the rulebook here. Why am I talking about the rulebook? I'm talking about the rulebook because I just got done with Carnival Zombie, which, while in theory, yes, all the rules are technically in the book, that rule book is written terribly. It could have been a heck of a lot better. It just has problems. But I am happy to report that this is not going to be the case with this game. This is a phenomenal rule book that does a great job going all the rules. I went through this complete rule book and there was not a single question I had about the rules of the game. Matter of fact, I think they did a phenomenal job with this rule book. And of course, one of the best things that I always like is anytime you have a rule book, last page is a reference and an overview of how to play the game. Not additional rules. Carnival Zombie, again, I'm still frustrated about that. I'll have that video edited and put up pretty soon because there's a few things I'm going to cover on that aspect. Additionally, the artwork for this game is very good with all the individual heroes. Yeah, I know there's still some that's a work in progress, but I actually know what the artwork's going to look like, and actually really cool. There's very nice, easy to read icons, and I also like the fact that this is not a game that has too much iconography. One of the frustrations I have is when iconography becomes its own lexicon, its own language, and makes it much more difficult to learn the game. Nice plain words here, nice plain symbols, very nice way of describing the games. And also there's this really cool touch on the back. There's a nice little story for all these different summons in the game, which I think is very nice. The only thing I would like to see them add, and I hope they do this, I mentioned this already, but the amount of hit points judges if a creature is small, medium, or large, or actually small, medium, big. I hope that they put a little letter next to all these for S for small for 2 hit points, M for medium for 3 and 4 hit points, and B for big or L for large. If they decide to use that term instead of playing big or using big, but decide to use the term large, maybe we'll switch to that for 5 hit point mobs. I think that'd be really good. Additionally, I think all this otherwise beyond that is really good. You have the color for the fact that green is much more of your glass cannons, blue is much more of your manipulative and your support, and red is more of your front line. That is really good. I would like to see one more change with components though. These pogs are really cool. I like how they fit in there. They do a great job, and this actually works out great, but there's no reason for these to be double-sided. Instead of these being double-sided, I would like the name of every one of these summons on the back of these, because my concern, and I don't know if this is going to be a fact or not, is while I got this wonderful organizer, I don't know if this wonderful organizer is going to come with the final version of the game. And I know when I got this box, all these components were pretty much dumped all over. It took me a good 15 or 20 minutes to organize this and get this organized like this. I think instead of having all these double-sided, one side should be the image and the back side should be the name of either the monster. Well, that should be the name of the monster is what point I'm trying to get across here, but it should be the name of the monster on the back for the special power, and it should be the name of the monster on the back of its individual pog itself. There's no reason for the artwork to be on both sides. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's nice, but it doesn't help setting up the game, and I think that's going to be one thing that'd be really good if they can add that in the game. Otherwise, these stands look great. I like how the texturized make it look a little more looks a little nicer than that. They fit in there nicely, and believe it or not, I'm actually at the point with my board game collection where I'm actually getting sick and tired of all the plastic and all the miniatures that are in the games. When I went plastic and miniatures, I go play Games Workshop. I play my tabletop managers games. When I want a board game, I want a board game. Matter of fact, when it came to Awakened Realms, when we're talking about the game The Great Wall, I actually got the wooden component version of that game, and I am so darn happy I did. Yeah, I know everybody's gushing over the plastic miniatures, but who cares? When it comes to plastic miniatures, I paint them anyways when I get them, but I really just want a game where I can put on the table, look at great artwork, not feel like I'm being pressured into painting it, and to play the game and have fun with it. So I am glad that we actually don't have tons of plastic, and it keeps the price down and allows you to enjoy the game, and you get the thematic artwork that they designed, and I think that's really, really cool. The board's really cool. The only one thing I would change with the boards is if you look at the boards here side by side, you can see how nice and vibrant this board is. This one's very subdued. And again, prototype. I'm assuming that's probably going to change. And nice thing about this is if they want to, since these are double-sided, maybe we can even have different artwork on different sides of the board. Who knows? Maybe that'll be a stretch goal. Finally, I think what they could do to make the components a little bit easier is have these double-sided. So haste is on one side, slow is on the other side. That might make it a little bit easier. That way players can just flip these over. Might help with a little bit more speed when you start getting a lot of buffs and debuffs going. And I know the final version of the game is the way the hit points are going to be is one side is going to show a heart, which shows that the hit point is still there. And then I think the other side is an X, then you're going to flip it over to show the damage. That's going to be kind of cool, and that'll work out perfectly. But component-wise, beyond those minor little things I mentioned, I think they really knocked out of the park with the components here. Wonderful artwork, nice little extra touches, all the great colored artwork here. Just, I would love the names on the back, and just the little thing with the small, medium, large, so I don't have to memorize one more thing, or if I go a little while without playing the game, I'm not going to forget that small minor rule, and everything else just looks great. I think they have a great game here. This is a game that plays strategically, plays deeply, tons of replay, a game with tons of synergy, and it's one of those games that you're going to be playing multiple times to see all the strategies, all the tactics, and all the ways you're going to play the game. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf-board-game-reviews. That is otsbgr@gmail.com. I do my best to answer those emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoyed the video and if you enjoy the content I put out there, think about supporting the channel on Patreon. Just tossing $1 in the tip jar can help me cover my costs and help keep that content going out there strong. No games, no gimmicks, no sponsors. Everything you see I put on this channel is 100% from my own pocketbook. I don't let people pay me for my opinions. I don't let people pay me to put things out there and talk about their products all the time like some other content creators do. Everything I bring out there, I bring out for you, the audience. You can help me cover my costs just with $1 in the tip jar and be so greatly appreciated. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you enjoy it, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Board Game Reviews.
I'm recording.
Nice.